Kaya, everyone, welcome. I would also like to acknowledge that we are standing on unceded Whadjuk Noongar land. Pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and I would also like to express my solidarity, my deepest mourning with the Cleveland Dodd family and all the families affected by deaths in custody in our outrageous injustice system. Another problem we have here in Australia, and another reason we need to protest. Sorry, I meant to have acknowledgement of country up there. Okay. So in the words of the suffragette Susan B. Anthony, suffrage is a pivotal right. The suffragettes won us our right to participate in a democracy, and let us remember just how they won us that vote, through protest. Not any polite legal protest, but hard, sometimes violent struggle, where they smashed windows, set buildings on fire, and when arrested, went on hunger strikes. But it worked, and those of us who now benefit from their struggle admire them as true heroes, not criminals. When we look through history, we can see that every right and privilege that ordinary people have won in society has been won by mass protest. Movements of thousands of ordinary people and workers coming together in their collective strength and fighting for their interests. The formal right to vote for women, the right to divorce, the 8-hour day, the weekend, equal marriage, civil rights, just about any decent thing you enjoy was won by protest. There can be a certain idea taught about history that social progress is a necessary, slow, automatic process, that as time goes on, things just get better on their own. But today I'm here to make the case, and I don't need to make the case, it's made right, that this progress, the reality is that this progress is won by protest movements, despite and in opposition to the ruling class of our society, and that the right to protest is the most basic and fundamental principle of democracy. A principle that is being increasingly undermined by a state intent on squashing our rights to protest to protect their very own selfish financial interests. So this was sanitary workers in America. Strike during the civil rights movement. Ooh. Display, sorry, display.
Drivers towards corruption embedded in this industry, the high value and complexity.
That's the other talk.
Is it the wrong talk?
Yeah, that's the lady before is coming over.
Oh, okay.
This is actually. Let me just go into the next one. See if it works. Okay. So I've just got a selection of various protests on there. Unfortunately, that one wouldn't play. That was another one from the civil rights movement. But here, oh no, why won't they play? So these are supposed to be videos. See, that's her again.
The first video?
Yeah.
Two of which are known to have been referred to the map. The BAE Systems frigate deal.
This woman is talking, that's from the last. That's not me.
Ah.
That's not my PowerPoint.
Ah, hang on.
Do you have it on? Oh, she's still playing. That's
we're fiddling around with the technology.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I'm really pleased at the reference to the suffragettes. One of the things we were talking about in my small group discussion was the lack of discussion of gender issues in
You've got it on your thumb drive.
but also how we other groups or movements we might affiliate with and work with towards peace.
One of these, IPAN talk?
Yeah, it should be.
Organisations.
Yeah, the presentation.
There's definitely some opportunities and a need to work with feminist activists towards peace and justice and equality for all.
good.
That's such a shame. Oh well, that's okay. We can cope. Yeah, really sorry about that. So I had some really powerful slides about, historical protests, the ones that won, so and then modern day. So I obviously had slides from the civil rights movement, and then the Black Lives Matter movement. Damn. What I wanted you to see, obviously, is I had a great clip for you. You remember Scummo when we had the women's marches, and Scummo came out and said, what are you complaining about? We have a great democracy here. Anywhere else, you could be facing bullets for doing what you're doing. And then I had a clip from the Melbourne Land Force protests, right, just last week, where we've got Australian cops firing bullets and tear gas at protesters. Yeah, so I was just trying to make that point, and I ended, well, maybe we can still get the picture up, not the video. So this was a Black Lives Matter movement where the cops actually drove through protesters. They're coming off the, this is a protest where cops actually drove through Black Lives Matter protests with their car. You could see them like bouncing off the bonnet. These were the Bangladeshi students. So this was obviously protest movement that won. So these protests sent the Prime Minister and the ruling class, she fled the country. But again, these students were facing real bullets and dying, and I don't know how many deaths there were, but very, very powerful protest. So this was him giving his lovely speech about how democratic we are here in Australia. And yeah, unfortunately, okay, so we're just going to have still shots, but this is the Land Force protests. So here we have, protesters obviously protesting a war conference. Here's warmongers in their very own streets buying and selling the weapons that are killing children in Gaza right now. And yet the protesters are blasted for being violent, terrorist, and I had a video clip there as one newsreaders described them as animals. Here are lovely democratic forces on the streets. And this is the one I wanted to end on. So this is Banksia Hill here in WA for those of our visitors who don't know about this. So Banksia Hill is a youth detention centre. We know here in Australia the age of criminal responsibility is 10. We lock up children at the age of 10. So Banksia Hill is under investigation at the moment. There's an inquest. Megan Cracker, comrade, is organising a mass suit against the government in Banksia Hill because the conditions in there are horrific. We're talking about, again, children, understaffed. Obviously, these are very troubled children. There are violent children in there, but, they're coming from a place of trauma, and this is how they're being met. So this was a protest the kids actually did themselves, protesting the conditions in Banksia Hill. They're having, up to 20 hours locked away because they just don't have the staff to give them the time out of their cells. Their visiting rights, it's really hard. I don't know why the staff basically muck around. Parents will come to see them and say, oh, we can't get them out of the cells at the moment. You hang around for an hour or two and then, no, sorry, it's not going to happen. They'll cancel it. Anyway, horrific conditions in there. They're brutal punishments, isolation for children for over a week. I think one child was in isolation. So they rioted, they protested, they smashed windows, set fires, and they got up on the roof. And this is our government response to 16-year-olds, I think the eldest was. 2 of those children are now dead. They took their own lives. They were all sent, again, this is Australia's response to protest, to genuine human rights issues. What they did was not bring in rehabilitative programs. What they did is they built another prison, another more brutal prison, set it inside a maximum adult security prison. It's called Unit 18. There's an inquest going on right now at the moment where the original Minister for Justice himself was forced to admit that if he had known the conditions that were in there, he never would have signed off on Unit 18. Unit 18 has to close. as I said, 2 kids have died, and our government response is, no, we're going to keep it open for another 2-3 years while they're building another prison to replace this Banksia Hill prison. So, sorry, I've gone off on a tangent, but yeah, this is the state. This is how we react to protests. You know, these kids were genuinely protesting for their lives. So our vote only goes so far. There are years between elections, and anyone with even the slightest interest in politics will know that parliamentary process is a grubby one. Money talks. Major parties have a monopoly. Both parties have now adopted changes made originally by Scummo's government, which requires minor parties to either already have a member in Parliament of a total of 1,500, already have a member in Parliament, or a total of 1,500 members to be registered, leaving dozens of minor parties, like Socialist Alliance, unable to run. Knowing they have lost favour with a large number of their voter base, with their treatment of unions, of nurses, of teachers, the disabled, the LGBTI community, the ALP now appear to be talking to One Nation about preference deals. Cook declared Labor will work with anyone. So our government doesn't stand much on principles when it comes to getting into power. Albanese himself, 20 years ago, was once a vocal protester in support of Palestine, attended protests himself where Israeli flags were burnt and demonstrations tried storming the US consulate. Now he suspends Fatima Payman for speaking out and abstains from condemning Israel genocide. Promises given at election time are rarely fulfilled. It seems such a long, distant time past and a complete fantasy, but I seem to recall that Labor were elected primarily on the promise to tackle climate change. Last week, Pilbara gave approval for 3 new coal mines. Not gas, which they're now spruiking as a clean transitional energy, but still coal. No action on climate change, it's just business as usual. And so we must protest.
Just 1 minute.
Oh no, well, this my whole thing went, look at this. You want to rush through? Okay. Aristotle. Liberty and equality, as some persons suppose, are chiefly to be found in a democracy. They will be attained when all persons alike share in the government to the utmost. So obviously our state is completely captured by the fossil fuel company. Obviously our state is completely captured by the fossil fuel industry. This is from a website on the Australian Democracy Network, which shows the 6 areas where we're captured. So financial interventions, Woodside made about, 10 million donations to both parties, both sides, so whoever gets in, it's business as usual. Lobbying, personal influence. Let's just say, ex-Premier McGowan now is a consultant for no less than 4 fossil fuel companies. He's on the board of Mineral Resources and he's also got a part-time job with BHP. Ben Wyatt, our ex-treasurer, who was in term when Rio Tinto casually blew up Jukong Gorge to expand their mine. He now sits on the board of Rio Tinto and Woodside. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm trying to rush through.
Sorry, I think we're going to have to wrap it up there.
I haven't even got to DBH.
All right, one more.
This is who we are, right? Okay, so we protest because our government no longer represents the interests of the people. We protest because while our very existence on this planet is under threat, our state remains totally captured by the fossil fuel industry, where our very government, lawmakers, police, courts, media are acting solely in the interests of the fossil fuel state, and action on climate change has all but ceased under the sway of donations, lobby groups, lucrative jobs for the boys. I gave you those examples. The climate movement exploded in 2019 and made mass protests go viral again, revived the question of mass protest movements and democracy as well as state repression. Scenes of thousands of cops laying into climate protests in London, Berlin, Australia, any Extinction Rebellion protest. Governments and police around the West passed legislation to criminally prosecute organisers, mass arrest crowds of protesters, militarise their police, invest in sound cannons, etc. We've seen the repression meted out against not just climate protesters, but the protesters for democracy in Hong Kong, women's rights protesters in Iran, Black Lives Matter protesters in the US, and Palestine activists the world over since the beginning of Israel's genocide of Gaza in 2023. Here in Australia, in the last 5 years, New South Wales, Tasmania, Victoria and Queensland have all passed anti-protest laws which impose severe penalties on people for engaging in peaceful protest. New South Wales' current laws, which were rushed through in 2022 in just 30 hours, means protesters can face up to 2 years in prison and a $22,000 fine. The wording of the laws are vague and broad, leaving ordinary people unsure of their lawful ability to protest. Parts of these laws were recently struck down as unconstitutional. Climate defender Violet Coco was sentenced to 15 months in prison for blocking a lane of traffic on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Luckily, her lawyer managed to have that overturned, but the law allowing such penalties still remain. The worst example set so far is probably in the UK, where 4 climate activists from Just Stop Oil were sentenced to 4 years and one for a record 5 for blocking a major highway. And the evidence that convicted them? A Zoom meeting where they were discussing the action. Another friend and comrade who lived here in WA and was part of the original blockade of the Burrup pub, Rosie Hicks, is now sitting in a cell in Wormwood Scrubs. She's been refused bail 3 times. She was literally kidnapped off the street on her way home from work, bundled into a police wagon and locked away. Her crime? Again, she took no part in any action but was caught on a Zoom call talking about organising. Love and strength to you, Rosa, and all those unjustly incarcerated.
Okay, I think so
DBH's campaign, all right? So this is what we're protesting. This is the industrialisation of the Karratha coast there. So it's not finally complete. You see the final platform are there. That will provide the feeder gas for everything else. But we're looking at 6 billion tonnes of toxic emissions if this plan goes ahead. So we at DBH, as I said, we protest. Two aims of that protest: to destroy the social licence of Woodside. You know, they act like they're a magnanimous company that they sponsor the arts and they sponsor the sports, all the while destroying, you know, they sponsor the little nippers, right, our lifeguards, while they're seismic blasting our oceans and destroying ecosystems. Chris, shout out to Chris who's here in the room now. Chris set off the gas canister in Woodside that evacuated the building for a day. Cost them lots of money, but the cost to Chris has been phenomenal. She, like many other on this campaign, so Jo, who did the first one, she spray painted the iconic painting in the art gallery, which I thought was very clever because it drew attention to the Murajika rock art, which is being destroyed up there. It's the only action she ever did, right? She is still facing court. 15 months later, they seized all her devices, and this is what the police and the state do, though. She was linked with Chris. They had one message over Zoom. So the cops are taking her, and they took all her devices, raided her home after she pled guilty and was found and fined for that action. 2 weeks later, they raided her home, took all her devices, made links with other members. She's still facing court. Chris, a Democrat, as is her bail condition, she was denied the right to go to all and any protest. So no any would vote, but protest. Yeah, we must protest. We must protest. There you go. Leave it on me.
Thanks very much.